Chapter 5. Freedom from the Mind.
It isn't necessary for the mind to be quiet. All that matters is that you not listen to what it's saying as if it were true.
Your mind is an amazing tool to create your life exactly as you want it to be. It is not your psychoanalyst or your therapist, yet we give it that kind of authority over us when we listen to it and believe all its thoughts as though they were true. This one habit of believing our own thoughts robs us of being able to live in the magnificence and glory of our true nature, awareness. We are prevented from having a life of constant happiness and a life where everything we need falls into our hands at the perfect time. Humanity has suffered too much for too long because of our minds. It's time to delegate our mind to its rightful place so that it is no longer the dictator of our life. When we no longer live from and through the mind, we will begin to live from our true self, awareness, and our life will truly become heaven on earth, free of suffering and negativity.
Every problem perceived to be out there is really nothing more than a misperception within your own thinking. Byron Katie.
The most powerful way to remove negativity is to recognize that you're not the mind. Once realized, negativity has nothing to hook to, and it dissolves by itself.
Most people believe that negative situations come from outside of them. They believe that it's either people, circumstances, or events in the world that have caused the negative situations in their life. But nothing is inherently good or bad, as Shakespeare told us. There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. It's your thoughts about a person, circumstance, or event that's the source of negative situations in your life, not the actual person, circumstance, or event. And so understanding a little of how the mechanics of your mind work will help free you from its erroneous negative judgments. And then you can use it for what it's intended for, to create the life you want.
Thinking was made to order what you want, not to indulge in it. The mind is there to receive the order and make it appear to you. Thinking isn't needed for anything else, because everything else is taken care of by awareness.
If you would only from this moment on see what you want, that is all that you would get. But you hold in mind the things you do not want. You struggle to eliminate the things you don't want, thereby sustaining them. So, it is necessary to let go of the negative and put in the positive if you want a positive, happy life.
What exactly is your mind? First, it's important to understand that your mind is not your brain. Your brain doesn't think. Scientists have not been able to find a thought in the brain. They can only see the electrical activity caused by thoughts. Thinking comes from the mind. Your mind is made up entirely of thought. If there's no current thought, there's no mind. It's as simple as that. Your mind can't even hold two thoughts at one time. You know that it's impossible to truly listen to a conversation and read something on your phone at the same time. Your mind can't multitask as much as you might believe it can. However, a single thought, whether positive or negative, becomes a powerhouse when you believe it.
If you prefer to suffer, go on believing your stressful thoughts. But if you'd rather be happy, question them. Byron Katie.
Most people believe their own thoughts as though they were facts, which explains why life is stressful and challenging for so many. No one pointed out to us that our thoughts are just mental noise, and they are not reality. However, if we choose to believe our thoughts, they will become our reality. Mind is the great manifester of our physical life, and it will manifest any and all thoughts we believe, whether they're positive or negative, whether they're thoughts of what we want or what we don't want. Positive thoughts are not harmful to your life because they are close to your true nature. It's negative thoughts that are the cause of our stress and suffering. And so we need to become particularly aware of negative thoughts. Because our mind is mechanical, negative thinking can easily become a fixed pattern. If you then listen to and identify with the negative thoughts, you'll be drawn in and become lost in your thoughts, as though in a hypnotic trance. Your thoughts will constantly take you into your head and away from what is actually happening in the world.
You believe that you are your mind. This is the delusion. The instrument has taken over you. Eckhart Tolle.
It's as though we're playing a virtual reality game and we've forgotten we have a headset on. Because of the challenging circumstances in the virtual reality world, we're stressed and suffering. But if we would just take the headset off, we would realize that the virtual reality world is not real. So it is with our thoughts. When we believe our thoughts, we're immediately caught in an imaginary mind-made movie that's playing inside our head, and we're no longer experiencing the world as it really is.
All thoughts are lies. The only truth is what is aware of them.
Awareness does the observing. Thought does the judging.
Thoughts are also responsible for causing our feelings, and then in turn those feelings will cause more thoughts. When we have a sad thought, it causes a sad feeling, and the sad feeling causes more sad thoughts. We end up looking at life through a veil of sadness, where everything appears sad to us, and we cannot see what is actually happening in the world.
Mind is consciousness that has put on limitations. You are originally unlimited and perfect. Later, you take on limitations and become the mind. Ramana Maharshi.
If you haven't deliberately programmed your mind to think positively, your mind will constantly throw up negative thoughts that belittle and limit you. I shouldn't have done that. What was I thinking? That was really dumb. I'm running out of time. I can't do that.
The mind is all no. Too late, too early, too fast, too slow. The mind never stops. It's not that the mind is bad. The problem is that it tends to run on automatic, a machine we can't figure out how to turn off. Most of the time, we don't even realize it's running. Its ever-looping content is like elevator music, hardly noticed, like background static that's tuned out. Because the mind goes everywhere we go, the temptation to use it constantly is overwhelming. It runs simply because it can. Like a misapplied hammer, the overactive mind takes random whacks at everything in sight, omitting no opportunity to judge, balk, interpret, identify with, stew over, start a story about.
A mind that's running on automatic will also constantly tell you there's lack in your life and the world. Lack of money, lack of health, lack of love, lack of time, lack of resources, and that there's not enough to go around. And if you believe it, that will be what you experience. Fortunately, your mind is also a magnificent tool. Your positive thoughts of what you want can not only turn your life around, but also give you great happiness and joy. If you only thought about what you wanted, your life would be amazing. But many are caught in the addictive pattern of believing negative thoughts, and it is freeing yourself from this loop of negative thinking that is needed and can be done quite easily. Your awareness will help set you free.
Don't believe the troublemaker.
There's nothing wrong with the mind. The trouble only begins when we believe it's negative thoughts. When you feel worried, it's because you are believing worried thoughts. When you feel doubt, it's because you are believing doubtful thoughts. When you feel anxious, upset, disheartened, scared, disappointed, irritated, impatient, revengeful, depressed, hateful, or any negative emotion, it's because you are believing thoughts. And while you hold on to those emotions, by continuing to believe your thoughts, your mind will give you even more of the same. A depressed feeling will produce more depressing thoughts, giving you a depressing perspective of people, circumstances, and events, which makes you even more depressed, and around it goes.
Thought is so cunning, so clever, that it distorts everything for its own convenience. J. Krishnamurti.
When we believe the mind's negative thoughts, we get pulled into the mind-made movie, and then we're guaranteed to experience more stress and suffering.
Self-inflicted misery arises when we believe negative thoughts.
You are responsible for everything that you feel. They are your feelings, they are your thoughts. You turn them on, you think them, and no one else but you does it. And you act as though you have no control. You turn a faucet that flows on your head and you say, "Oh, someone is getting me all wet." It's you who's turning on the faucet and getting yourself wet. So, your direction should be taking full responsibility for what's happening to you. Then you'll see by looking in the direction of, "I am doing this," that you are. Then, when you see that you're torturing yourself, you'll say, "My gosh, how stupid can I be?" And you'll stop. Instead of torturing yourself, you'll make yourself happy.
Taking responsibility for everything in our life also means not blaming anyone or anything else for something that happened. And it means not blaming ourselves. Blaming is just another repetitive program in the mind. The real you never blames. Only the mind does. What will set you free from the mind's blaming and criticizing ways is understanding that it's your mind that is the sole cause of negative judgments, and to stop believing its negative thoughts.
As long as you think that the cause of your problem is out there, as long as you think that anyone or anything is responsible for your suffering, the situation is hopeless. It means that you are forever in the role of victim, that you're suffering in paradise.
When we take responsibility for our own life, we no longer allow the ego and mind to play the role of a victim on our behalf.
No thought ever can dominate that which perceives the thought. Notice what it feels like to realize this. Notice that it feels free. This is what stops the unconscious identification with thoughts. This breaks the chain. Peter Jubin.
It's awareness that is aware of your thoughts. And it's awareness that is aware of your emotions. The one who gets upset is not awareness, the real you. The one getting upset is your mind. The one who gets angry, hurt, worried, anxious, or disappointed is not the real you. It's your mind. It only feels like you because you believe your mind is you, and because you believe your mind's thoughts.
Like the scrolling text at the bottom of the television screen, let thinking just pass. If attention is not focusing on the text, then you can be fully present to the whole picture. Kalyani Laurie.
The mind's 3 thoughts.
Although our mind arises out of awareness, as everything does, our mind is not an entity or a real thing, even though it sure seems like it is. It's simply a mechanical activity or process, much like a computer program. And just like a computer program, it's repetitive. In fact, it's so repetitive that it only has 3 different kinds of thoughts.
The mind measures, compares, and describes. These 3 things are all the mind does, over and over and over again. Check for yourself with anything you say or with whatever thought appears. That thought will either be the mind measuring something, comparing something, or describing something.
Your mind measures with thoughts like these. It will take 2 hours to get there. I'm going on vacation in 1 week. How long will it take for my shipment to arrive? I've lost 10 pounds. I don't have enough money. Your mind is comparing when it thinks thoughts like these. I prefer an SUV to a sedan. I like to walk to work instead of taking the bus. She's smarter than me and way more talented. He's going to get the promotion over me, I know it. Look at her, I wish I had her body. He's not the person he used to be. And your mind constantly describes things as if you can't see them. But you can see what's happening in your life very well without mind's constant commentating. And in fact, that non-stop chattering prevents you from seeing the world as it really is.
Our attention focuses mostly on thinking. We become trapped in the interpretations we make and miss out on the fullness of living.
The mind makes something of everything that comes along. This has become the default mode, so much so that it little occurs to us that it could be otherwise, that the mind really could forego the making something of everything that comes along. Nor does it occur to us that the making something that keeps the mind so enthralled is the actual cause of suffering. We keep thinking it's the stuff that happens in life that causes suffering.
When your mind is describing something, it's telling a story. It's an interpretation of the world and reality. It's imagined. Many of the mind's fabricated stories are about you. And if believed, those stories can not only cause you stress and suffering, but also greatly limit your life. When you believe a negative story, your life will turn into that story. Your mind spins up a negative story about you, you add the power of belief to it, and then your mind projects it into the world for you to experience it. It does it with thoughts like these. I'm overwhelmed. I just can't seem to get on top of things. I'm no good with money. It seems to slip through my fingers. This disease runs in our family. I've got a big problem. I can't get past the trauma of it. It will affect me for the rest of my life. We were together for years. He was the love of my life, so I'll never get over him. One of the biggest lies our mind has convinced us of is the story that we are a body and a mind. And because we've believed it, it has become our experience. We feel vulnerable, fearful of what might happen to us or others, helpless against life's events and circumstances. And if that isn't enough, many of us are also burdened with the belief that life will come to an end for us when the body dies. It's ironic that the real you, the infinite awareness that you really are, is the direct opposite of that story the mind has told you.
If you take the way it works, a human being wakes up in the morning and for the first moment there's just stillness. Then there's a re-engagement of the mind. The mind kicks in and starts saying, what have I got to do today? How old am I? What are my problems? How am I going to stop all these things going wrong? There is complete identification with the story. You pull your boots on and off you go again.
Another story our mind has convinced us of is the story about time. Time is a very convenient tool that enables us all to work from the same calendar and clocks so that we can coordinate our lives with each other and with everything that's happening in the world. But as Einstein discovered, time is relative. Ultimately, there's really no such thing as time. Time is an illusion, a mental concept created by the mind.
If you try to get your hands on time, it's always slipping through your fingers. People are sure time is there, but they can't get hold of it. My feeling is that they can't get hold of it because it isn't there at all. Julian Barber.
All that really exists is this present moment, and try as you might, you will not be able to find any event or circumstance that happened at any other time than the present moment. If you try to imagine a world without time, you won't be able to do it because your mind can't comprehend it. Your mind is always either in the past or in the future. It's not aware of this present moment. If you stop and are present right now, you will notice that there is no thought. It's one of the reasons why the mind has been able to prevent so many of us from realizing who we really are, because awareness can only be recognized in this present moment. If you don't think your mind creates time, then see if you can find time outside of your mind.
Try and find any evidence of the past without thought. Try as hard as you can to find any past apart from the current thought of it. It's impossible.
Now try and find the future without thought. Try really hard. It's not possible to find any evidence of the past or the future without thought. No one has ever been able to step into the past or into the future. When anything happened in the past, it happened in the present moment. When anything happens in the future, it always happens in the present moment. Check it for yourself. Go back in your memory to when you first rode a bike as a kid. When you were actually riding your bike, were you riding it in the past, or were you riding your bike in the present moment? When you woke up this morning, did you wake up in the past, or did you wake up in the present moment?
The past and future cannot be experienced. They can only be mentally processed. Past and future exist only in the form of thought.
The only evidence we have of the Earth's past is rocks and fossils. But these are just stable structures in the form of an arrangement of minerals we examine in the present. The point is, all we have are these records, and you only have them in this now. Julian Barber.
When I was first told that time doesn't exist, my mind went crazy with all kinds of thoughts trying to prove that time does exist. Like, what about old buildings? Aren't they proof there's a past? But when I really examined it, I realised that when the buildings were built, they were built in the present moment. And if I am standing looking at the old building, I'm also looking at it in the present moment. And anyone who has looked at the same building also looked at it in the present moment. Eventually, as I examined each thought that came up, trying to prove time is real, I saw that every one of them was false, because there is only the present moment.
Whether you like it or not, you're in the moment. There's only one moment. It's infinite. And you can't be anywhere else but in it.
Now is not a moment in time, sandwiched between the two vast spaces of past and future. This present now is the only now there is, the eternal now. It has not come from anywhere, and it is not going anywhere.
If you can just open yourself to the possibility that time is an illusion, it will help set you free.
The future never comes. Think of that. The future never comes. There is only ever the present. In the present, there is the feeling of not missing life, of not having anywhere to get to, anything to get done. The present is where it is happening, and it isn't happening anywhere else. it sure as heck isn't happening in the mind. With all the wondering about what's ahead and the going over and over something that's already come and gone.
The past is made of memory, the future of imagination. Neither has any existence outside the realm of thought.
The mind constantly fixates on the past and the future, neither of which exists, but which just the same causes us stress and worry. You think to yourself, I'm running late for our meeting. My boss and work colleagues are going to be furious with me. I was late last week too. I could get fired over this. Instead of believing those thoughts as facts and certainties, be aware that they're just flimsy thoughts. They're fabricated stories. But if you believe your mind, it will become true. The mind's storytelling is nothing more than one of its mechanical programs, and yet it has managed to convince most of us that its stories are true. The story that time is real. The story that we're a body and a mind. The story that we are a separate person who is born and dies. All of these things combined play their part in constructing the reality that we experience. But they are all in the mind, and therefore nothing but mental ideas.
It's not you that people like or dislike. It's their stories of you.
Don't believe a story your mind tells you if it's something you don't want. Otherwise, you will brand yourself with it. Watch the mechanics of your mind and don't accept a single story or thought about yourself that is anything but perfection and goodness, because perfection and pure goodness are the fact of what you really are.
Awareness is your way out.
What is a thought? A movement of energy. What is a feeling? A movement of energy. Peter Lorre.
What you are, infinite awareness, can never be affected by thoughts. So become aware of your thoughts and see them for what they are. Just a thought, just energy passing through.
A thought is like a bird flying by. Let the bird fly past without analyzing it. Where are you going? What kind of bird are you? Where's your family? How old are you? Just let the bird fly past.
You don't have to eliminate your mind or go to war with your mind. You will add even more power to your mind if you try to do that. Awareness is your way out of the turmoil of the mind. Just become aware of your thoughts so that you no longer believe them. You can't be aware of your thoughts and believe them at the same time, because awareness of your thoughts prevents you from identifying with them as though they were true. When you observe your thoughts, instead of getting lost in them, you see them for what they are, something that you can either choose to believe or not.
Who you are does not need a thought to hear, doesn't need a thought to see, doesn't need a thought to sense your body and your surroundings. Who you are is thought-free. Awareness is hearing, seeing, sensing everything first, without any thought.
Remember, your thoughts aren't aware of you. You are the awareness that is aware of your thoughts.
When you are willing to really look at how seriously you take yourself, your mind can start to feel at peace, with a little warm breeze drifting around in there. Who you have held on to as being you, your opinions, your desires, fears, what you're invested in, has gotten a little hazy around the edges. Life is feeling strangely easy, joyful even. What happens just happens. You're okay with it, really and truly okay. No opinion about it floats across the radar screen. It's gotten very quiet inside your head. You realize how very hard you've been working your entire well-meaning life. Life just began for you.
Chapter 5. Summary.
The habit of believing our own thoughts robs us of being able to live in the magnificence and glory of who we really are. It's your thoughts about a person, circumstance, or event that's the source of negative situations in your life, not the actual person, circumstance, or event. Thinking was made to order what you want. Thinking isn't needed for anything else because everything else is taken care of by awareness. Your mind is not your brain. Your brain doesn't think. Thoughts come from your mind. Your mind is made up entirely of thought. If there's no current thought, there's no mind. Most people believe their own thoughts as though they were facts, which explains why life is stressful and challenging for so many. It's negative thoughts that are the cause of our stress and suffering, so we need to become particularly aware of negative thoughts. When we believe our thoughts, we're immediately caught in an imaginary mind-made movie that's playing inside our head, and we're no longer experiencing the world as it really is. Thoughts are also responsible for causing our feelings, and then in turn, our feelings will cause more thoughts. There's nothing wrong with the mind. The trouble only begins when we believe its negative thoughts. The one who gets angry, hurt, worried, anxious, or disappointed is not the real you. It's your mind. The mind only has 3 different kinds of thoughts. The mind measures, compares, and describes. One of the biggest lies our mind has convinced us of is the story that we are a body and a mind. Another story our mind has convinced us of is the story about time. Time is an illusion, a mental concept created by the mind. All that really exists is this present moment. Past and future exist only in the form of thought. You don't have to eliminate your mind or go to war with your mind. Awareness is your way out of the turmoil of the mind. When you observe your thoughts instead of getting lost in them, you see them for what they are, something separate from you that you can either choose to believe or not.